Hello. Hello, welcome. Welcome. This is the global community for adults who are healing CPTSD. My name is Athena, and I'm going to be facilitating our time together tonight. We have all been joining here together and gathering here about once a week for over 12 years now. And you are more than welcome to join us. We gather here at 7 p.m. on Mondays. And right now we're doing a guided read through Pete Walker's most recent book titled Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a Six-Dimensional Approach. And I'm so grateful that you have decided to be here with us. So tonight we begin, it's the very beginning of chapter 2 in a section of the book that is titled Facilitating Relational Repair and Development. And this is most definitely one of the most integral parts of the book. Pete makes reference to chapters 2, 3, and 4 a lot throughout the book, and this is the very beginning of that section. So if you are newer here and you're watching this or listening to this rather on a replay, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. You should see something down in the comments section. In one of the comments, usually one of our community members will do you a favor if you're new here. So those of us who have been gathering together and hanging out together for more than a decade, or a lot of us for the better part of a decade, we've been, like I said, we've all been sort of, life happens and we go our separate ways and we always come back, but many of us have been connected for over 12 years. And many of us have met in person. A lot of us connect here once a week, and when we're not here, before I forget, when we're not here, this YouTube channel is made possible by the Foundation for Post-Traumatic Healing and Complex Trauma Research. I'm going to post a link in the chat box. There's a link in the description section of the video. And I always forget to put a link in the comment section, but it is in the description section of the video. And so the Foundation for Post-Traumatic Healing and Complex Trauma Research exists for those of us who would like a place to receive support between therapy appointments. So this YouTube channel is an extension of that. On Mondays, this is not therapy, this is YouTube, but let's say, you want a place to check in with a community of like-minded people who are on a healing journey, who are healing complex post-traumatic stress. Well, this is one place where you can check in with others who are on a similar healing journey. And then when we're not here on Mondays, away from social media, we have a private community on a platform, on a private server, an app called Circle, and we all gather there and we connect with one another, whether it's in a chat box sort of area similar to the chat box here, or if it's during daily recovery support calls, which are similar to what we have here on Mondays with the audio component and discussing a psychoeducational piece or connecting with one another. And that's at 12 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern, 2 times a day, every day. And then in between those daily recovery support calls, like I said, we have sort of a chat area, like a peer support chat group, and then wash, rinse, repeat. So this YouTube channel is an extension of the Foundation, which exists to provide support and resources between therapy appointments. So if you are here and you can hear my voice, even if this is the first time you've ever been here, I'm just very glad that you found us. And even if you never hear my voice ever again and we never get an opportunity to connect, I really hope that just this one replay or this one video or this one connecting point is something that feels helpful and supportive for your unique healing journey, because your journey is unique. There are 8 billion different ways that you can heal. And everything that I do in the world is based on that one presupposition, that none of us has it all figured out, and we can come together side by side in solidarity and move towards our perspective and respective healing journeys and where we're going in our healing path. And coming together helps us to feel less alone. We don't feel as othered or less than or other than. And it really does just feel good to come together every single week. So this space on YouTube and the way that we have our weekly gathering and open discussion group here is not possible without people like Jeffrey Sherman, John Harvey, and Ninja Taco, who have little blue wrenches next to their name. And it used to be a wrench. It used to be a blue wrench, and they were our blue wrench crew. Now, apparently this week, the wrench has changed, and it's now a box. But blue box crew just does not sound the same, so I'm still going to call you my blue wrench crew, and we are all so grateful for you. So I'm going to pause, and I just want to warmly welcome each of you who have decided to join us this week as we begin Chapter 2. Thank you to John Harvey, Ninja Taco, and Jeffrey Sherman. My hand is on my heart. I deeply and profoundly appreciate you and the ways that you choose to show up week after week, month after month, year after year. And just a very warm hello to you, Jeffrey, and Karen, and Candida, and Jen, and Lisa Marie, and Kitty, and John Harvey, and Ninja Taco, and Greg. And let me see if there's any. Hello, this be me. Hello. Hello. So glad to see you. Hello to anyone else I didn't greet by name. If I missed you, hello, Mary. Has anyone seen Craig? Craig, if you're here on a replay, I love it when you let us know in the chat box and letting us know that you're doing okay. We're sending you hugs. I know that the time zone is a little wild for you to be waking up at 1 a.m. trying to be here. So we're sending you lots of love and hugs. Hello, brave Vanessa. Hello to anyone else I didn't greet by name. Hi. Oh, so glad to see you all. Oh, you all are just so incredible and supportive to one another and supportive of one another. And I'm really just, so grateful. Jeffrey, a special thank you to you for making sure that everyone who arrives here has access to crisis resources and links to people, places, and things that they might find helpful and supportive. And I feel like there's a new person here, and I skipped over them, and I didn't mean to, and I'm trying to find you. Oh, it's Lula. Mary says, I was like, who's Lula? And I haven't had a chance to say hello to Lula. Hello, Lula. Can you hear me? Your mommy says that we have a new member with us tonight, and she cannot text because she's a dog called Lula, but she is here, and she says hi, and you are just such a good animal. You are such a good animal, Lula, and we love you. We love all the emotional support animals. Hello. We're so glad you're here. Hello, Cheryl. We're so glad to see you, and there are lots of welcomes here for you, Lula. We love you. Yes, I'm with Lisa Marie. Lisa Marie says there's so much happening in the world. This is a very special place to find. It really is. I am consistently and eternally and undeniably grateful for this space, especially with just everything that is going on in the world. Before I begin reading, and before I begin our chapter 2, I want to gently and lovingly request if someone could let me know how the volume is. I'm probably going to be reading from right around here. This is where I will be reading from. And in addition to the volume, I want to make sure that someone or multiple someones are open to putting in the comments section once the video has rendered that our reading of Pete Walker's most recent book begins right around 10 minutes into the video, so that anyone coming here and doesn't want to hear all of us checking in with one another, that they are able to, it's probably at about a little bit after 10 minutes, so like 10 minutes and 15 seconds ish, 10 minutes and 15 seconds, 10 minutes and 30 seconds ish, where the reading of tonight's content will begin. So thank you for letting me know the volume is good. I really appreciate it. Hello Jennifer. I got Jen, I got Jennifer. Aw, thank you all so much. Thank you, Cheryl. Yeah, thank you. All right, I am going to just take a nice slow breath before I begin reading, because we have a lot that we're going to be reading tonight. And I need to get a sip of water because my voice has been a little bit, it's been trying to leave me today, but it's stuck around so far. So I'm just going to get some water. I want to invite you to get very comfortable and just thank you once again for your presence. Okay. And we begin. This is chapter 2 of Pete Walker's most recent book, titled Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a Six-Dimensional Approach. And chapter 2 is titled Facilitating Relational Repair and Development. And it starts with two quotes, one from Dr. Stephen Porges and the other from Harville Hendrix. Safety isn't just the absence of threat. It is also the presence of connection. And that is a quote from Dr. Stephen Porges. Next quote, we are born, wounded, and healed in relationship. Harville Hendrix. We are on page 60 for those of you who have the paperback book. And here we go. Pete says, a famous, ongoing, 85-year-old Harvard study on relationships repeatedly finds that the quality of one's relationships is the key factor of health, contentment, and longevity. Humans who have enough warm connection in their lives frequently enjoy such an experience in their lives. According to Dr. Waldinger, the current director of the study, social fitness creates physical fitness. To the degree that warm relationships are absent from someone's family and subsequent relationships, their health, contentment, and longevity are seriously compromised. Here are some central concepts revealed in this study as described in Liz Mineo's article, Good Genes Are Nice, but Joy is Better, in the Harvard Gazette, and that was originally published April 11th, 2017. Close relationships, more than money or fame, are what keeps people content enough throughout their lives. Such ties help people to weather life's normal disappointments, help them delay mental and physical decline, top of page 61, and are better predictors of long and contented lives than social class, IQ, or even genes. This finding has proved true across the board for 85 years among its subjects and their offspring, Harvard undergraduates and inner city disadvantaged participants. For more on this, watch the YouTube video of Waldinger's 2015 TED Talk titled, What Makes a Good Life? Or read his book titled, The Good Life, Lessons from the World's Longest Study of Happiness. Now let me highlight here that Waldinger is not touting absolute happiness. In his TED Talk, he states that the key thing he himself learned from the study is that he does not have to feel ashamed of having problems and disappointments in his life because every human being has them. He has learned through his own warm and authentically vulnerable relationships that everyone sometimes suffers. Moreover, those who have at least one safe and supportive person in their lives resolve their periodic disappointments and fight-flight triggering through talking about it with them. This is good news for the many childhood trauma survivors who are introverts and socially phobic. They have the possibility of finding a warm, trauma-informed therapist to attain this restorative experience. I have witnessed many such survivors benefit greatly from working with relationally oriented trauma therapists whose approach is congruent with the one I present throughout this book. Here is a statement that I find especially germane to the treatment of developmental trauma and CPTSD, which I heard from Dr. Angelo Pizzotti in his seminar that expanded on Waldinger's work. And he says, those who were clearly train wrecks when they were in their early 20s turned out to be wonderful octogenarians. End quote. My free association about this statement is that these so-called train wrecks were probably acting out adult children raised in traumatizing families, and somewhere along the way, throughout therapy or partnering with someone who experienced good enough, top of page 62, good enough parenting, they found a consistently warm, caring, and reciprocal relationship. I have also seen this wondrous repair happen numerous times when an untreated survivor connects with a fellow survivor or group of survivors who have recovered their innate capacity to relate with empathic relational intelligence. This brings us to my eclectic model of developing relational intelligence, which is consistent, consonant with the preceding findings. A relational approach is especially crucial in trauma work because the two most dire developmental arrests of developmental trauma and CPTSD are the lack of a supportive relationship with anyone and the lack of a supportive relationship with oneself. Middle of page 62. Most untreated developmental trauma and CPTSD survivors have never had a safe enough relationship. Healing such a life-spoiling attachment disorder usually requires a reparative relational experience with a therapist or trusted friend who has the capacity to stay compassionately present to their own pain as well as the pain of another. Therapists who have this level of relational and emotional intelligence can guide their clients into gradually letting go of the learned habit of rejecting their less than happy feelings. They can model and teach clients how to be unconditionally supportive of themselves, no matter how upset they are. To accomplish this, therapists must fully grasp that untreated survivors are frequently flooded with excruciating toxic shame, fear, and depression. They experience these feelings as their fatal flaws and are extremely reluctant to show them. They typically respond to their inner pain by isolating and hiding to avoid being triggered into even greater shame and fear. Developing their trust typically requires a great deal of sensitivity, empathy, and patience. Bottom of page 62. Effective therapists use kind, empathic eye and voice connection to gradually establish trust with them. Over time, such therapists also model being present to their own affects. Top of page 63. Such practice can steadily enhance what Daniel Siegel calls the co-regulation of affect. There is increasing neuroscientific evidence that this co-regulation is physiologically accomplished through the agency of mirror neurons. Mirror neurons are brain cells that fire when an animal acts and when an animal merely sees the same action performed by another. In fact, neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti, in his book Mirroring Brains: How We Understand Others from the Inside, cites a great deal of research that points to mirror neurons as fundamental to the process of feeling empathy. Middle of page 63. And since everyone has these neurons, it seems that most humans have the innate capacity to develop empathy, as well as the ability to beneficially receive it. Thus, restoring empathic interconnectedness is a crucial therapeutic goal in the recovery work of rebooting the development of arrested relational intelligence. Susan Vaughn also explains in The Talking Cure how such work appears to promote the development of the inner neural circuitry necessary to healthily metabolize painful emotions. Middle of page 63, in a subsection of Chapter 2 titled Relational Healing in Developmental Trauma Disorder and CPTSD. Pete says, most traumatologists see attachment disorders as a key symptom of CPTSD, one that is caused by ongoing childhood abuse and neglect. I use a relational approach to restore and renew the damaged and arrested innate relational functioning of survivors. In the psychoeducational phases of working with traumatized clients, I typically describe an attachment disorder as the result of growing up with the primary caretakers who were regularly experienced as dangerous. Dangerous by contemptuous voice, or dangerous by heavy hand, and or insidiously dangerous by remoteness and indifference. Bottom of page 63. Recurring abuse and neglect habituate children to living in states of anxiety, alienation from self and others, and chronic depression. Top of page 64. As untreated adults, this developmental trauma and CPTSD syndrome recurringly hair triggers adult survivors into emotionally flashing back into the abandonment melange of overwhelming fear, shame, and depression. As children with parents who were unable or unwilling to provide safe enough attachment, they had no one to whom they could bring their whole developing self. No one was there for interaction, validation, and guidance. No one was safe enough to go to for comfort or help in times of trouble. There was no one to cry to protest unfairness to, or to seek empathy from when they were hurt or upset about their disappointments, ailments, mistakes, or experiences of being betrayed. For the untreated adult survivor, middle of page 64, little has changed around such alienating experiences. Their stalled relational development belies the saying, "No man is an island." For them, it has always felt like living on an island of loneliness and alienation. Life on this island often has the tone of the famous Talking Heads song, "Same as It Ever Was." As children, Such survivors suffered the calamity that no one was safe enough to shine with or to do show and tell with. They were never reflected as a subject of pride. They never got to practice the all-important intimacy-building skills of conversation. In the paraphrased words of more than one of my clients, talking to mom was like giving ammunition to the enemy. Anything I said could and would be used against me. Little wonder that people always tell me that I don't seem to have much to say for myself. Without treatment, survivors with CPTSD spawned attachment disorders and are often plagued by debilitating social anxiety. When they are at the severe end of the continuum of CPTSD, the anxiety turns into an intense social phobia that strands them in an isolation where they never learn the communication skills that create closeness and a sense of belonging. Top of page 65. Most of the clients who come through my door, this is Pete Walker speaking, have never had a safe enough relationship. Repetition compulsion drove them to unconsciously seek out relationships in adulthood that traumatically reenacted the abusive and abandoning dynamics of their childhood caretakers. It is as if they decide unconsciously, well, since I couldn't get detached and punishing mommy and daddy to love me, maybe I can find a way to get someone who is like them to love me. Then I will know that it wasn't my fault that they didn't love me. I'm going to read that portion of the book again, starting at the top of page 65, because this is a puzzle piece that unlocks about 2.5 billion other puzzle pieces in the healing journey of CPTSD. So, for those of you who are here with me now, I'm going to go back up to the top and I'm going to share this one more time. And I really, with my hand on my heart, I'm looking at each of you. I want you to know that once I realized that all of this wasn't my fault and that this is what I was doing, I cried 1,000 tears for 100 days and I let myself off the hook and I wasn't in a shame spiral. And I continue to try to remind myself of these things as often as I can. Okay? Pardon the interruption for new people, but I do tend to do this occasionally when there are moments where it's a potential light bulb moment for you, the listener, and I don't want you to miss it. So, as I often say, please don't miss this. Again, top of page 65, this is Pete Walker speaking, and he says, most of the clients who come through my door have never had a safe enough relationship. Repetition compulsion drove them to unconsciously seek out relationships in adulthood that traumatically reenacted the abusive and abandoning dynamics of their childhood caretakers. It is as if they decided unconsciously, well, since I couldn't get detached and punishing mommy and daddy to love me, maybe I can find a way to get someone who is like them to love me. Then I will know that it wasn't my fault that they didn't love me. And sadly, rather than finding redemption, such survivors typically end up with a partner who is as devoid of empathy and not so dear old mom and dad. For such clients, therapists are often their first legitimate chance to work through their relational wounding and learn the skills of safe and nurturing relating. If their therapists are not warm and caring enough to help them feel sufficient safety and trust, they may be their last chance. Many survivors leave unsuccessful therapies believing that they are just too damaged or too unworthy to be helped. Many firmly shut the door on ever looking for help again. And this is Athena speaking. That was me. That was me until it wasn't. I somehow didn't give up and I finally found a therapist. So if this is you and I'm describing you and this lands for you, or you're crying 1,000 tears over 100 days or what have you, please just don't give up. If you're looking for a sign to not give up on finding the good enough therapist, if you're looking for a sign to tell you not to give up on your own healing, this is it. This is the moment. Okay? Pete continues in the middle of page 65, and he says, as the importance of this understanding ripens in me, I increasingly reap more evidence that a therapeutic relational approach is the most effective way to remediate survivors' many developmental arrests. Moreover, I have noticed that when survivors do not develop a modicum of trust with previous therapists, they are hampered in their receptivity to their guidance and blocked to the soothing effects of their empathy. In this regard, then, let me describe the 4 key faculties of relational intelligence that effective therapists use to develop the trust that is essential for relational healing. These are empathy, authentic vulnerability, dialogicality, and collaborative rapport repair. Top of page 66 in a subsection titled Empathy. I'm going to pause here and I want to lay out for you what it is that we're going to do for the rest of tonight and for next week. This list that Pete just gave us of the ingredients for a therapist that can actually help someone with CPTSD, the list includes empathy, authentic vulnerability, dialogicality, and collaborative rapport repair. Tonight, on February 9th, we are going to cover the 2 subsections in Chapter 2 titled Empathy and Authentic Vulnerability. And then next week, on the 16th of February, we will cover dialogicality and collaborative rapport repair. And that is what's on deck for right now. So tonight is going to run long, and next week will likely run a bit long. We are at the top of page 66 in a subtitle of Chapter 2, a subsection of the book in Chapter 2 titled Empathy, as the first ingredient of what a therapist needs to help someone with CPTSD. Pete says, in the past, I assumed that the merits of the relational faculty of empathy were a given in psychotherapy. Sadly, however, I have heard too many complaints from survivors about therapists without empathy. If we are aloof or unsympathetic with our clients, we trigger the same sense of danger and abandonment in them that they experienced with their caretakers. In terms of a definition, I especially value Kohut's statement that empathy involves immersing oneself in another's psychological state by feeling one's self into the other's experience. End quote. I recently heard another version of this. Quote, empathy is seeing with the eyes of another, hearing with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. End quote. Middle of page 66. When I delve deeply enough into a client's experience, no matter how perplexing or extreme it may seem at first, I inevitably find psychological sense in it. This becomes increasingly true as the client and I reconstruct a picture of their childhood trauma. In fact, I can honestly say that I have never met a feeling or seen a behavior that did not make sense to me when I viewed through the lenses of transference and traumatology. Therapists can communicate their empathy through attuned listening and sympathetic elicitation of their clients' painful experiences. Moreover, the time-honored techniques of mirroring and paraphrasing show clients the degree to which therapists actually get them. My most effective technique for activating my empathy, and this is Pete Walker speaking, is to invite a memory of something I have experienced that is emotionally analogous to the pain my client is currently struggling with. When enough safety has been established, I will share my personal reverberation with their experience and then identify commiseratively with their suffering. This process is described at greater length in the section of the next chapter, Using Vulnerable Self-Disclosure to Build Relational and Emotional Intelligence. Top of page 67. Here is a preview. George and I have had weekly sessions for about a year, and today he stumbled as he entered my office and hit his knee on the edge of the sofa. He instantly launched into a viciously shaming himself. "I'm so sorry, Pete. I'm such a spaz. This is misfit me in action, in full pathetic clumsiness, proving to you what an inveterate loser I am." Wondrously, free association grants me a similar personal memory, which I hope will soothe him into self-kindness. I interrupt his laundry list of his faults, which I have heard numerous times, and I softly say, "George, I really feel for you. I experienced something similar last month when I opened up this waiting room door to welcome in my therapy group, and as the group filed in, I slowly backed up to my chair while greeting them, and then I sat down, and I thought I'd repositioned my chair, and I crashed to the floor. I bet you get how mortified I felt. I momentarily wished I could run out of the room, but instead, thanks to the kind of work we're doing on rescuing ourselves from inner critic attacks, I silently rejected my inner critic's judgment, and I kindly soothed myself for forgetting that I had moved the chair back against the wall. I then confessed my short-lived embarrassment to the group, and I shared with them my process for rescuing myself from the shaming of the inner critic, hopefully turning a lemon into lemonade. But more importantly, let me ask you, George, are you okay? Did you hurt yourself? And then George replies, "No, I'm all right physically, but my mind is still lost in taking a beating from that goddamn inner critic." And Pete says, "Thanks for letting me know. I'm relieved you're okay, and I'm so sorry about that inner beating, George. I know your parents regularly humiliated you for trifling mistakes, as did mine." Top of page 67. We both got stuck with internalized versions of them as part of our inner critics. Here's how I rebut my inner parents when they are internally ragging on me. No one gets through life without losing their balance and innocently stumbling sometimes, physically or verbally. Such happenings are human, normal, and small potatoes, unless one's parents continuously turned trifling imperfections into capital crimes. Over time, such traumatizing behavior builds an inner critic in us that mercilessly apes their contemptuous habits of only noticing us negatively. My parents had PhDs in this and never missed an opportunity to indict, judge, and sentence me with their contempt. Once, they went off on me all day because my pencil rolled off the table while I was doing my homework. Were you treated similarly? Is what I'm saying sounding familiar? And then George says, "Does it freaking ever? Not only were my parents viciously judgmental, but they were so arbitrary about it. Damn, let me count the ways. They were always double binding me. Oh, don't rush, don't dawdle, you talk too much. You never have anything to say for yourself. The part in your hair is on the wrong side, you slob. And the absolute killer was the time I fell down the stairs because my little sister left her marbles all over them. I really got hurt. I really got hurt, which they totally ignored, and then they used that incident to brand me a clumsy oaf forevermore. George drops down in this moment into deeply crying about how awful they were. And I support him with soft, intermittent monosyllables. Yes. Yeah. It really is good to cry. It can release the pain of their cruelty and replace it with self-compassion. George's tears subside. His body, and especially his face, relaxes. And from a lower octave, he satisfyingly reports, "Wow, that's the first time crying has ever actually felt good. And so relieving. And this is Pete Walker speaking, I celebrate this breakthrough with him. Good job, George. Let's welcome the rebirth of your self-compassion." My resonating with him becomes lovely minutes of soothing connection between us. Top of page 69. They also presage the beginning of an even deeper phase of our work. George tells me in our next session that he spontaneously thought about me one night at home shortly after he woke up in an intense flashback. My image, he said, reminded him to resist his inner critic and to successfully rescue himself from his overwhelm with the 13 flashback management steps. I resonate with his sense of triumph, and I frame it as a sign that his trust in me has taken a quantum leap, which he happily acknowledges. The use of accurate and validating empathy is explored at greater length in this and in the next 2 chapters. Of the many benefits of empathy, the greatest is perhaps that it models and teaches self-empathy, aka self-acceptance, to the degree that therapists attune to and welcome all their clients' experience. To that same degree, do clients learn to welcome it too. Middle of page 69, in a subsection of chapter 2, titled Authentic Vulnerability, which, as you remember, is the second ingredient in an effective therapist that can help someone with CPTSD. Authentic vulnerability. Middle of page 69, Pete says, truly intimate relating blossoms out of exchanges of authentic vulnerability. Therapists can model and enhance this relational faculty of intimacy in sessions by personally and emotionally reverberating with survivors' painful experiences, as was illustrated in the vignette above. Authentic vulnerability is the process of sharing one's like-minded emotional responses to normalize, de-shame, and validate the survivor's feelings. Simple statements such as, "I feel sad that happened to you," and "I feel mad that you were treated so unfairly." These statements cultivate trust. Therapists can fertilize trust even more with statements like, "I felt sad or mad when the same thing happened to me." This is especially effective when what is said is fleshed out with true, brief, and analogous examples. Such interventions model real intimacy and develop a safety that encourages client vulnerability. Top of page 70. It prepares them in the long run for finding real intimacy with someone else. When therapists are vulnerable themselves, they embolden survivors to put words to their own feeling states. When survivors see that their therapist egosyntonically experienced mad, sad, bad, and or scared feelings, their shameful, fearsome reactions to their own affects gradually decrease. As with empathy, when therapists model vulnerability, they encourage clients to risk wading into their own previously prohibited emotions. I came to value therapist vulnerability the hard way, through its absence, in my first long-term therapy. This is Pete Walker speaking, although I could absolutely agree and say the same. Pete says, my therapist was committed to an old psychoanalytic principle of optimal frustration. She held the traditional position of being a blank screen. She was distant, laconic, affectless, and anything but optimally frustrating. I increasingly found therapy with her to be countertherapeutic and shame-inducing. In retrospect, this so-called therapeutic relationship reenacted the destructive archetypal dynamic of defective child, perfect parent, which is what causes developmental trauma and CPTSD in the first place. Repetition compulsion led me to stick with her for 2 painful years as my arrested capacity for trust deteriorated even more. Therapist emotional disclosure. Thankfully, bottom of page 70, I eventually realized that I had unresolved attachment issues and sought out a relational therapist who valued the use of her own vulnerable and emotionally authentic self as a tool in therapy. Through her vulnerable self-disclosures, she helped me to deconstruct my defensive veneer of acting like I always had it together, and before long, I felt safe enough to moan and grumble, especially because she often joined me in my complaints. She commonly kvetched and modeled her acceptance of her own similar feelings. Top of page 71. Yes, Pete, the holidays can be awful, and I feel sad that your mother was so cold, and it makes me angry that she bullied you so much. I was inspired, this is Pete Walker speaking, he says, I was inspired by the way that she shamelessly felt and expressed anger, sadness, fear, and depression. Gradually, she helped me to renounce the emotional muteness that I needed to survive in my dysfunctional family. Sometimes being vulnerably and emotionally silent lessened the constant stream of my mother's invective, but sometimes it helped me to maintain some hope of winning a tidbit of her approval. My self-expression began to expand as I took the welcoming cues from her, the therapist, as many of my clients have since done with me. I gradually emerged from my fear of being attacked, shamed, and abandoned for putting words to my painful emotions. My therapist helped me to let go of my Sisyphean salvation fantasy of achieving constant happiness. Seeing that she was comfortable with and accepting of her own unhappy feelings finally convinced me that she was not disgusted with mine. As she consistently and approvingly witnessed my less than shiny bits, I felt thrilled that another human being saw me as normal and acceptable. Middle of page 71. Therapists' judicious use of vulnerable self-disclosure helps clients move out of the slippery, shame-lined pit of emotional perfectionism. Here are some examples of vulnerable emotional self-disclosure that therapists can use to build trust with survivors. I feel really sad that no one ever let you know what a good person you are. I feel really angry that you got stuck with such a god-awful family. When I'm temporarily confused and don't know what to say or do, I do some journaling. When I'm having a shame attack or feel suddenly triggered into fear, I read the 13 flashback management steps to myself. When my inner critic is overreacting, I remind myself of the Winnicottian concept that I only have to be a good enough person. I then renounce my inner critic's goading to strive for the impossible and destructive goal of becoming perfect. Top of page 72. Pete says, my most consistent feedback from past and present clients is that responses like these, especially ones that normalize and de-shame anger, tears, fear, and depression, help them to embrace all their feelings with acceptance and self-compassion. Top of page 72 in a subsection of Chapter 2 titled Guidelines for Self-Disclosure. What guidelines then can therapists use to ensure that their self-disclosure is ethical and therapeutic? The following 6 principles help me to disclose therapeutically and steer clear of unconsciously and or frivolously sharing for my own narcissistic gratification. First, self-disclose sparingly. Second, self-disclose primarily to promote safety and trust in the relationship. Engage in vulnerable self-disclosure to normalize and de-shame the inexorable existential imperfection of the human condition. We all make mistakes, suffer painful feelings, experience confusion, and suffer unexpected losses. Third, do not share vulnerabilities that are raw and unintegrated. Fourth, do not engage in self-disclosure to work through your own pain, nor should you use it to meet your own narcissistic needs for personal edification or verbal ventilation. Fifth, self-disclose only in response to cues from the client. Sense what arrested dimensions of their development most need attention and share something personal that helped you address that arrest. And sixth, when and if clients try to shift the focus of the session onto the therapist's vulnerabilities, thank them for their empathy and gently remind them that therapy is always client-centered and that it is meant to focus on the client's concerns. When it feels appropriate, therapists can tell clients that they have an outside support network. Do this to model to them that it is a desirable goal in recovery to enlist the support of others outside of therapy. Top of page 73 in a subsection titled Emotional Self-Disclosure and Sharing, Matching Trauma History. Since most of my clients, this is Pete Walker speaking, top of page 73, since most of my clients seek my services after reading the parts in my book on my own recovery from developmental trauma and CPTSD, self-disclosure about my past trauma is sometimes a moot point. However, such sharing still repeatedly shows me how therapeutic my vulnerability is in ameliorating their toxic shame. It also typically cultivates trust and hope. Of the 10,000 five-star reviews of my complex PTSD book on Amazon, many cite this aspect of the book as uniquely helpful. Many elaborate on how my working through traumas that are like theirs gave them the courage to take this challenging journey. Regardless if someone has read my book, I often share my experiences of what worked for me in dealing with their current issue. This, of course, is on the basis of having thoroughly explored their issues with them. My goal in doing this is to psychoeducate them and to model ways to address their concerns. One common example sounds like this. Oh, I hate emotional flashbacks too. Even though I get them much less often, less intensely, and less enduringly than when I started this work, falling back into that old fear and shame can be so awful. Fortunately, practicing the 13 flashback management steps still helps a great deal. Here is another example. Bottom of page 73, Pete says, I really resonate with your feelings of hopelessness and powerlessness around the inner critic. In the early stages of my work, I frequently felt overwhelmingly frustrated. It seemed that trying to shrink that horrible legacy of my parents actually made it worse. But now, after thousands of thought-stopping and thought-correcting responses to my critic, it has shrunk into a feeble whisper. A final example concerns a purely emotional self-disclosure. Top of page 74, and we're just about done for the evening. Pete says, a final example concerns a purely emotional self-disclosure. When a client is verbally venting about a sorrowful experience, I sometimes let myself match or lead them by tearing up as I authentically commiserate with their pain. The first time my most helpful therapist did this with me, my trust in her took a quantum leap. Internally, I rejoiced. Her empathy for me is real. And fortunately, tearing up in empathy now comes naturally to me. And thankfully, I can easily withhold it when I see that it may be countertherapeutic. Finally, I liberally share my real enthusiasm and happiness about my clients' breakthroughs and accomplishments. Many survivors were attacked and shamed for their successes, and as children, they still have that unmet developmental need of being recognized positively. Fortunately, I am also naturally inclined to do this, and I see it as a vital part of imbuing trust. And that is where we end this evening. Next Monday night, we will begin in the middle of page 74 in the third ingredient of a therapist who is able to help someone with CPTSD. And that the third ingredient is dialogicality, which we'll dive into next Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern. And then the last ingredient is, where did it go? I just had it. Collaborative rapport repair. So we're going to run a little bit long like we did tonight, next week. But I'm so grateful that we got to cover as much as we did. Oh, let me get my glasses so I can see you. Hello. Hello to all of you. How are you? You all made it. Here you are still. Right? It all landed. I'm with Jen. Jen says, wow, this landed. Like all of it today. Yeah, absolutely. Good night, John Harvey. My hand is on my heart. I appreciate you. Good night to you, Ninja Taco, if you're still here. I don't know if you're still here, but I just wanted to say good night to you. And thank you. to you, John, and to you, Ninja Taco. I see you, Jeffrey Sherman. Thank you, Jeffrey Sherman. Oh, Jeffrey Sherman is speaking with you, Kitty. Jeffrey says, I'm always thinking of you. I hope you get what you need to keep going, Kitty. Oh, me too. Kitty says thank you. Oh, This Be Me is offering a hug to all of us with memory impairment and loss. Yeah, I intermittently struggle with that as well. Oh, good night, Ninja Taco. I'm glad you're still here. Good night to you, Candida. Yeah. Oh, absolutely, Greg. Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you. Absolutely. It is a joy for me to be here. You all are my family. I'm with Jeffrey here. Oh, thank you, Karen. I know. Oh, it's a shield. Is that what it is? Karen finally explained what I thought was a box. So now you are the Blue Shield crew, not the Blue Wrench crew. I don't know, man. But apparently it's a shield. You're guarding us. You're the guardians of the galaxy. Oh my goodness. Oh, Nadine. Thank you so much, Nadine. Nadine says that was so helpful. Oh, thank you for being here. Thank you for your presence. Thank you to each of you. I know daily recovery support is beginning. And tonight, I believe everyone's over doing a field trip with Rachel. So I want to be mindful of that. Please say hi to Rachel from me. Those of you who are going to go over and hang out with Rachel, will you please tell her I said hi and tell her I can't wait to talk to her next week? I think I'm talking with her on the 20th. It's like at the end of next week. So please tell her I said hi. And Jeffrey says, I like the idea of having a shield. Cool. Yes. The Blue Wrench Shield Knights. Yes. I love this. I love this so much. Oh my gosh, I completely forgot that I wanted to give you all some cake because, oops, where did it go? Where did it go? I wanted to give some cake because it was Ninja Taco's birthday last week, and I wanted to share a lot of cake with all of you because, yeah, yes, singing we are family. Get up, everybody, sing. All right, the new people, the newbies here are like, this lady is completely nutball crazy. She's bonkers. I'm out. All right, everybody. Thank you. Please be extra kind, patient, and gentle with yourselves because you're worth it, as Jeffrey would say. And if I don't see you over in our peer support chat group or on daily recovery support, then I will see you back here next Monday and every Monday, 7 p.m. Eastern, where we will begin week 6 in the middle of chapter 2 of Pete Walker's most recent book, Holistically Treating Complex PTSD, a six-dimensional approach. And if anyone wants to put in the comment section of the video after it renders, the reading of the book tonight begins somewhere between minute 10 and minute 11, and it ends right about the top of the hour. Okay, I'm sending you all so much love. Thank you for your presence. Good night, everyone.